All right, shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
First and foremost, we want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakodash. Double honors to the apostles and others, a great millstone. Peace and salutations to the elect. All right. I'm the brother Inaf from GMS Dallas, and I got the elder Yatazak here as well with me. We're continuing the book of Second Esdras. We're doing a series where we're covering the entire book of Second Esdras, and today we're covering chapter 11. We're going to see how far we can get. This chapter is covering the rulers during the Roman Empire. This is a history chapter that pretty much you have to understand the history, all right, to understand the mystery, okay. And when you go into these prophetic books, it's really confirmation, all right, that the Spirit of the Lord is you know is on the men that wrote these books. Okay. If you've been following this series, you'll see that Ezra was having a series of visions, dreams, conversations with one of the archangels of the Lord. Okay, which name was Uriel, and this is basically a continuation of the conversation from chapter 10 and chapter 9. Okay. Now, we're going to go ahead and start at verse 1. Oops, I didn't mean to click that. But before we do, it's important to understand what time period this is talking about. Okay. And so what we're going to do, let me go here. I'm on Wikipedia. I'm going to type in Roman Republic.
Now keep in mind in what's that first Maccabees, it talked about how Alexander's generals split everything up. You know what I'm saying? It's going into the Edomites. You see? So it's
Mhm.
letting you know say all this history about the Edomites is in the Apocrypha. You know what I'm saying? You have to understand that the scriptures breaks this thing down completely. So this is a continuation. This is a continuation, just like the brother saying. This is a continuation of uh, 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 First Maccabees chapter 1. It's still talking about the Edomites. You see? So by the time you get to Second Esdras 11, it's giving you another time frame where the Edomites was ruling and what to look for, which when you get to the New Testament, you see how things work. So having an understanding of this history is crucial, you see? Because having this understanding of this history makes you understand the prophecy. You know? You got it.
Right. Another chapter that we reference when we go into different empires that had us that had Israel in captivity is Daniel the seventh chapter, where it talks about the four beasts, right? And those four beasts representing Babylon, the Babylonian Empire, the Medo-Persian Empire, the Grecian Empire, and then the Roman Empire. Okay. Um, when you get Daniel 7 and verse 7, all right. This is talking about the Roman Empire. I'm gonna read it. It says, "After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly." Why was it dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly? Because it was more powerful than the most powerful army that preceded it. Okay, basically what happened from around the time of the Babylonian Empire, really starting back in the Assyrian Empire, really, um, which that was according to my handy timeline, the Syrian Empire, or where's that timeline at? Started with Shalmaneser, right? Well, it didn't start with him, but Shalmaneser the fourth, Shalmaneser, or excuse me, Tiglath-Pileser and Shalmaneser the fifth. They were the ones that were pretty much around during the Syrian, the northern kingdom basically being taken away from Samaria, excuse me, not Syria, from Samaria, which that was around 700 BC. Okay, and as time progressed, right, into 600 BC, you had the Babylonian Empire, and then a little bit more time progressed to where the time that Ezra was living, okay, all right, 500 BC, all right, up to, a little bit beyond 400 BC was the Medo-Persian Empire. Then you had the Grecian Empire, all right, 300 BC, leading all the way up, okay, up until the Roman Empire, all right. Now, again, Second Ezra 11 is discussing the Roman Empire. And before I read verse 1, I want to just get a little bit of backdrop or backstory, if you will, of Rome and how it got to this state. Okay, that we're about to read about. So the Roman Republic. Okay, the Roman Republic is from Latin res publica. Okay, which I got it here in my notes. Res publica was Latin for public thing. Okay, so basically, it says here it was established, in 509 BC. Okay, which basically was when the version of Rome before the Caesars came into existence. Okay, so Rome was a it was a republic before it was an empire. It was called the Roman Republic, right? Let me finish this verse in Daniel 7, and I'll get back to this in on the Roman Republic. It says, and it had great iron teeth, of course, because of the military might that it had, which we'll go into that. It says it devoured and break in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. Okay, all of the armies, all of the land, that the Roman Republic took over, pretty much, they made it to where they made alliances with those people, to where they had a never-ending influx of men to join their armies. Okay. Now this part in the end of verse 7 says it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Now the reason why it was diverse is because it had a senate instead of a king. Okay. And when you look at the earliest days of Rome, before the Republic was established, we can read here, it says the Roman Republic was the era of classical Roman civilization, beginning with the overthrow of the Roman kingdom. Okay, so the Roman kingdom, was originally a monarchy. Okay, during the old days, before the even the Grecian Empire really got established. Okay,
And
so
what that did was divided the house.
yeah,
You see, so keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. You see, a house divided cannot stand. So if you building your house, you building a divided house. So eventually it's gonna go down. And prophetically, you have to be watching what's going on. You see, because the same way that the old Roman Empire went out, once it was revived, it was gonna go out in similar fashion. You see, but the end is gonna be fire. You got it.
kind of. So what I wanted to do, I'm gonna read the end of this paragraph, and then I'll get also a precept in First Maccabees 8. All right, because you got to think, if the Roman Republic was established during 509 BC, well, that was around the time of Ezra's life. Okay, we got to go back to this deal here. Okay, that was during the time of basically Ezra, being on the scene. Okay, And so that's how long ago the Roman Senate was. That's how long ago the Roman Senate was pretty much, you know, established. Okay. Now it says, and it ended in 27 BC with the establishment of the Roman Empire, which is what verse 1 goes into. But before we get that, it's important to get a little bit of the backstory. So that's why we're going into this. Following the War of Actium, okay. Now it says during this period, Rome's control expanded from the city's immediate surroundings, all right, to hegemony over the entire Mediterranean world. Okay, so what you saw during this process was the first example of globalization. Okay, and you can see, um, you know, compared to, right, we got Italy right here. Rome would have been somewhere in this area. It eventually expanded all the way out into all directions. Okay. And so we got to cover this. It's good to cover this now, so that way you understand when we read the verses in Second Esdras 11, you'll have something to reference that on. So let me go get this last scripture before we start in Maccabees, First Maccabees chapter 8. Now, again, First Maccabees took place during the Grecian Empire. Okay, and again, making reference to Daniel 7, a great way to kind of organize the timeline in your head, because we're pretty much talking about a period of what, 700 years in Daniel chapter 7, right? From the Assyrian Babylonian Empire all the way up until the to the Roman Empire. So really like 800-year period from like 700 BC all the way up until 100 AD. Now, zooming in, okay, to the third beast, which was the leopard, which is the Grecian Empire. Okay, that was during the time of the Maccabean revolt, and they were fighting against, uh, you know, uh, what was it, the Seleucid Empire?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Ultimately, because you had, of course, it started with Antiochus Epiphanes, and then he had, men after him that took his place after he died to fight. Uh, and so during this time, okay, um, Israel was, pretty much under the jurisdiction of the Grecian Empire, but the Grecian Empire's power was waning. Okay, and Judas Maccabeus pretty much, it says it here, right? How he heard of the Romans, and how the Romans made leagues with the people that came unto them. Okay, and so I'll read a little bit of this here. It says, First Maccabees 1, I'm sorry, First Maccabees chapter 8, verse 1. Now Judas had heard of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men. Now keep in mind, this was around, let's say around 300 BC. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, what I mean, around 300s BC in that area. Could have been maybe 200s, somewhere in that area. Okay. BC, right? It says, now Judas heard of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and make a league of amity with all that came unto them. Okay, again, this is how the Romans were able to become such a large dominating force. Okay, because they conquered the lands that they conquered. They made allies. They became allies with them. Okay, in which obviously increased their military might. It says that they were great, and that they were men of great valor. It was told him also of their wars and noble acts which they had done among the Galatians, and how they conquered them and brought them under tribute. Let me just double check and see when was the Maccabean revolt. Let's see what we got. Okay, great. So the Maccabean revolt was Okay, so it was close. It was 167 to 160 BC. Okay, so about 160 years before 160 years before what's it called? Before, before Yahweh Shah came on the scene. Okay. It says the outcome, the Maccabees achieved religious freedom and eventually established the independent Hasmonean kingdom by 141 BCE.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why in the New Testament, that's why in the New Testament, the circumcision was acting the way they was acting. You see, but you wouldn't know that without this account. You know what I'm saying? You got it.
So another thing to note is that during this time, now that we have an exact closer date of around 160 BC, okay, at this time, in second Maccabee, I'm sorry, in where I'm at, in first Maccabees 8, okay, Judas Maccabees is um is looking at this you know, what's the word? Basically victory and success that the Roman Republic is having, because at this point, okay, you had the Punic Wars, okay, the Punic Wars that was fought. It was a series of wars between the Roman Republic and the Carthaginian Empire. Okay. Now there was basically 100 years, over 100 years of fighting. Okay. And basically what ended up happening is Rome ended up winning. Okay. And they ended up taking control over northern Africa. Okay. And this was around, I think it ended around like 150 BC. Okay, so at this point, okay, Judas Maccabees is seeing uh, that Rome is very successful in their endeavors, and that pretty much they're growing in strength. So it talks about the policy that they have, all the people that they conquer. They pretty much make allies with them. Now, when you drop down to verse 15, okay, it says verse let me see, verse 13, it says also that whom they would help to a kingdom, those reign, and whom again they displace. Finally, that they were greatly exalted. Yet for all this, none of them wore a crown or was clothed in purple, to be magnified thereby. Moreover, how they made for themselves a senate house, wherein 320 men sat in council daily, consulting always for the people, to the end that they might be well ordered. Okay. So again, all this is very important to understand, that the Roman Republic preceded the Roman Empire. Okay. And again, this is how it was different from all of the other uh, empires that came before it. Okay. Because again, it did eventually transition into an empire, was that it had a Senate. Okay. A Senate of 300 at that time, 320 men. Okay. And those 300 to 320 members, all right, elected annually two consuls to basically, that they would control, right? And so it talks about that in verse 16, and that they committed their government to one man every year. It was really two consuls, okay, every year, who ruled over all their country. All right, but the two consuls were always under control of the Senate. So they basically, were the face, but the Senate, the 300 men of the Senate, were the ones who were really pulling all the strings. It says, and that all were obedient to that one, and that there was neither envy nor emulation among them. Okay, so the Roman Republic was documented in the scriptures as well. All right. So with that being said, um, all of this preceded, all right, Second Ezra chapter 11, but it's important to
Right,
know.
right.
Okay,
Going into the foundation of where this all came from. You
con,
see, you got it.
con. All right, so now we're going to start Second Ezra 11 and 1. It says, then I saw a dream, and behold, there came up from the sea an eagle, okay, which we know sea represents the multitude of the people, okay? And what is that? Revelation, the 17th chapter, it talks about the sea as well, I
Hmm.
believe. Let me double check. Let me see here. The great horde is sitteth upon many waters. That's it. Okay, the sitteth upon many waters is talking about the multitude of people. Okay, when you
Hmm.
read it here, Revelation 17 and 1, which that great whore, of course, is talking about America, Babylon the Great. I'm making reference to the sea or the many waters, referencing a multitude of people. Okay. Um, it says, and behold, there came up from the sea an eagle, which again, the Roman Empire at this point was transitioned to an empire, um, which had 12 feathered wings and 3 heads. All right. Now, the 3 heads also had their own corresponding feathers. All right. The 12 feathered wings is talking about the Caesars, from Julius Caesar all the way down to Domitian, okay, in succession. So when you go into that, okay, just to name them off real quick, Julius Caesar, okay, he was the first, right? Then you got Augustus Caesar, okay. You got Tiberius, okay. Then you had Caligula. Then you had what was it? Claudia, right?
Claudius.
Claudius. Then you had Nero, okay. Then you had Galba, then Otho, then Vitellius, then Vespasian, then Titus, and then Domitian. Those were the 12 feathered wings. All right. Now the 3 heads, okay, is going into the first triumvirate, okay, which when you go into the first triumvirate, okay, again, this is a history chapter. Okay, at the time it was prophecy, it was spoken before it actually happened. All right, and this is fulfilled prophecy. All of the scriptures in this chapter, okay, is history. Okay, at
Yep,
this
and
point.
people have to understand that the Bible is about the Israelites, but it's tracking the Israelites throughout history. That's why you'll hear people say that. That's why you'll hear people talk about Alexander the Great, and you hear certain names throughout history. Well, each captivity that the Israelites was in, that that's what it was. You see, so this history of the Edomites ruling over Israel. You see, it goes through every captivity that we was in. So you got to keep that in mind. So prophecy wise, each captivity was prophesied. Like
Mhm.
either you understand that or you don't. But if you do understand it, it's easier to follow along. You got it.
Yeah, including this prophecy. I'm sorry, and this including this captivity. You know, this captivity was prophesied, but people think that we're outside of the times of prophecy now.
Right, because Daniel, that will say Daniel prophesied about all the kingdoms. You see, so why wouldn't all the kingdoms be written about? So when you
Right.
exclude the apocrypha, you know what I'm saying? It's just letting you know the spirit ain't dealing with you. You got it.
Con, con. All right. So again, the 12 feathered wings were uh the Caesars, the first 12 Caesars, we'll say. Okay, which Julius Caesar, some people say that he, wasn't an official Caesar, but he started the trend. He pretty much you know started the trend of Caesars. Like Julius Caesar, his actual name was Caesar. Okay, which Caesar? Let's look it up. What does Caesar mean? Okay, Caesar. Oh, I think I had it. What was it? What does the name Caesar mean? Well, they pretty much copied it after Julius Caesar, but I want to know what it actually means. Caesar, it means ruler, but I want to actually get it. It keeps pulling up. Let me see. Caesar. Let's go to Edom Online. They always got the real deal. Etymology of Caesar. Let's see here. Here we go. All right, Caesar, um, an emperor, a ruler, or a dictator. Okay, from Caesar, originally the surname or the last name uh, of Julius Caesar. Okay, let's see here. Okay, he was an emperor. The title, it was used as a title of emperors down to Hadrian in 138 CE, 138 AD, we'll say. Um, that's pretty much it, you know. So when you go to when you go to
When you stay in Edamon, as you were scrolling down and sees it came up with Czar and Kaiser and all that.
oh, you saw that? I didn't see that on there. Let me see. Oh, I see it
Yeah,
here. Yeah, here we go. The water. Okay, it says
con.
uh, in Old English had Cesare, like Cesare Borgia. His name was Caesar. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then Caesar, like if you said it in English, Caesar Borgia. That's what we say. That's his
Yep.
name. You know, um, right? It says old English had Casare. Well, I don't know if it was Cesare. It says which would have yielded modern Koser, but it was replaced in Middle English by Kaiser. So even like
Hmm.
Kai, Kaiser Wilhelm, right? Which is he was the ruler of Germany before and during the beginning of World War One.
Right, and for a good movie that goes into that is The Kingsman. That series is the third one. It's you got Kingsman, the one that had Sam Jackson, and then you had the second one that had damn uh
Oh,
the dancing white boy that might be a Jake. But in the third one, it's a prequel and it goes back to World War I and it goes into Kaiser Wilhelm and all that was going on with World War I. But the original, when they go back to the prequel, is based on World War I and it goes into all these characters that was actually prophesied to be these men is written about in the scriptures, man. You got it.
Khan. Yeah, so Kaiser, well, Kaiser was a name for emperor, okay, or leader, and also from Norse or Low German, and later by the French or Latin name Caesar is also the root of German Kaiser and Russian Tsar. Okay, so the Tsar. Let's give some examples of the czars. Okay, that's how influential Rome was.
Right.
Okay, uh, here we go. Tsar Alexander II, for example. Okay, he was the emperor and king, emperor of Russia, excuse me, king of Poland, and Grand Duke of Finland. All right, in the 1800s. Okay, so again, that name Caesar was used throughout history after Julius Caesar to denote an emperor, a ruler, or a dictator. Okay, so people took the following feathers, if you will, took that on that title of Caesar. Okay, after Julius Caesar. All right. Continuing on in verse 2, it says, 2nd Esdras 11 and 2, and I thought, excuse me, and I saw, and behold, she spread her wings over all the earth, and all the winds of the air blew on her. Okay. Now, the winds is, basically all the nations that were under the influence, okay, and that were subjected by the Roman Empire. I saw on one of the, here we go, on the map here. We'll get this map. Now, this map, it says it was the Roman territory on the eve of the assassination of Julius Caesar. So basically during the beginning of, trying to zoom out, here we go, during the beginning of this time period that we're talking about with the 12 feathers, this was the territory that the Roman Republic, soon to be the Roman Empire, was in control of, okay, at this time. Now, when you think about it, this was shortly before the birth of Yahushua, okay? And this is why when you go into scriptures like, we have no king but Caesar, all right? That's talking about the rulers, okay? The ruler, that specific Caesar at that time, I believe it would have been Tiberius Caesar. That was the Caesar during the time of Yahushua's crucifixion, if I'm not mistaken. Right. So they're making reference to that. And then even in Luke 2 and 1, Augustus Caesar is mentioned. I'll pull that as well. All right, because again, this is all history. This is all history lesson. Okay, well, I'm gonna keep it on. I'm gonna keep it on locked and loaded. But see, check that out. Right? So let's go back to my handy map. All right, again. All right, visualize this map. All of the brown is the territories that Rome had jurisdiction over, okay, in verse 2, right? She spread her wings over all the earth, and all the winds of the air blew on her and were gathered together. Think about, how all of the nations basically were drawn in towards the eagle that subdued it. Okay, it says in verse 3, and I beheld. All right, because again, when you look at this map, Rome's in the middle. Okay, the wind blows in 4 directions. They had territory to the north, west, south, and east. Okay, from all 4 directions. Okay, that's those winds. All right. It says, and I beheld and out of her feathers there grew other contrary feathers. All right. Now, when you go into the contrary feathers, or the small feathers, or the little feathers, or the little wings, is talking about the less time, the Caesars that ruled for a smaller percentage of time, which we're going to go into the Caesars individually. Okay. It says, and they became little feathers and small. Okay. Which we're going to organize it and go into which ones were the heads and which ones were the small feathers. All right. It goes into each individual 12 of the Caesars in this chapter. It says, but her heads were at rest. The head in the midst was greater than the other, yet it rested it with the residue. Okay, so they were all alive during the same time, excuse me. Those 3 heads, okay, that were mentioned in verse 1, again, was Julius Caesar. Okay, he was matter of fact, let me make reference to my notes. He was basically a governor and warrior. Okay, then you had Marcus Crassus. All right, let me get some visuals up here real quick.
And then keep in mind, Israel is in captivity while this is going on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, like I was saying earlier, all the captivities, all the history of the world is contained in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? So, all these different captivities that we're reading about, you get to see, right? So, as the line of Yahweh Shem Yahweh the sons of God, as that line is tracked through the Bible, it's showing you that the Israelites was here the whole time. It's about what was going on with the Israelites as history progressed. So now we in when Daniel prophesied those kingdoms, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is how it played out. You see, you got it.
Con. Okay, so Julius Caesar, born in 100 BC and died March 15th, 44 BC, was a Roman general and statesman who was the dictator of the Roman Republic. Okay, all right, the Roman Republic.
Republic,
Right,
Republic. Yeah.
that's it. Right, because he was the man that changed all of that and turned it into an empire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, it says he was the dictator of the Roman Republic at various points from 49 BC until his assassination in 44 BC. Okay, which we're going to go into, but it says a member of the first triumvirate. Okay, he led the Roman armies through the Gallic Wars and defeated his political rival Pompey in Caesar's civil war. Now, when you go into the first triumvirate, which is what the three heads is talking about, okay, in verse 1 as well as verse 4, okay, the head that was in the midst, excuse me, the head in the midst that was greater than the other was Julius Caesar. Okay, Julius Caesar is that head in the midst. Okay, now um, this first triumvirate, okay, basically was formed um, because Julius Caesar wanted to become Pontifex, what's called Pontifex Maximus. Okay, um, Pontifex Maximus was a title that was given, basically like the highest. It was like the highest priest of the Roman religion. Okay, which came with extreme amounts of power. All right. Now, in order to basically support his political campaign, okay, because basically, in order to become, Pontifex Maximus, obviously it took a lot of money. He had to recruit the help of the second image that you see here, okay, which is Crassus. Okay, Crassus was known as the richest man basically in Rome. Okay, and Crassus gave Julius Caesar money to support his political campaign. Okay, and then
Now,
go
where
ahead.
you can get a visual, where you can get a visual on the triumvirate is on Spartacus. You know what I'm saying? Because it was going in between the Romans and the Greeks was at war with each other. You see, and in Spartacus, slaves that was going. All this is going on while Israel is in captivity. You know what I'm saying? So they had the show Spartacus. It centered on it showed Julius coming in the play. It showed Crassus. You know what I'm saying? It showed that relationship develop in that series Spartacus. You know what I'm saying? If you want to get a visual to go along with what we're talking about, go ahead.
That's right. Okay. Now then, the third image you see on the right here is Pompeii. Okay. Now, Magnus, he was also an important individual in the Roman Senate. Okay. And basically, what ended up happening between the what's it called? These two men here on the left, Julius Caesar and Crassus, okay, the political campaign that that Julius Caesar was on allowed him to become the he was elected to become a consul, which is the highest office, of in the Roman Republic, right? We went into that earlier in First Maccabees 8 and 16. All right. Once that happened, okay, General Pompey on the right, excuse me, on the far right, he pretty much viewed Caesar as a rival, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
a threat to power. Okay. So once Caesar saw that, in order to solve the issue, he formed an alliance with Pompey, um, and that ultimately formed a new political and military alliance. So this was the first triumvirate here. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, just kind of abridging this whole thing. Okay. Now, going back here to the scripture, Second Esdras 11 and
Yeah. And,
3.
just this my I googled it was about I will say from Alexander the Great to Julius was enough time what to say 1500 years or something like that.
Mhm.
Well, but yeah, the time between them could be him coming back as Julius. I'm not saying that it is, but you know what I'm saying,
Yeah,
with the concept of reincarnation and the understanding, the impact that Alexander had and lasted so little of a time. You know what I'm saying? It's possible. We can look into it further, but it was just something I noticed. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? I was like, maybe that's a possibility that Julius could be coming back. Well,
Well,
Alexander could be coming back as Julius, but yeah, who knows?
well, what I was gonna say was that Julius Caesar did come back, as Vespasian, you know,
Right, right.
which this chapter goes into that. This chapter goes into
Right. That's why I say we could point to that. But then when I was thinking, just looking at it from it just sparked in my mind what you was talking.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the Greeks and the Romans were Edomites. They're both Edomites.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So just like how Esau was fighting against Esau in World War I and World War II, the
Yep.
same thing back then. There's nothing new under the sun. All right. So going
Yeah. Just a thought.
yeah, yeah. So let's go ahead and continue on here. All right. And in verse 3 it says, "And I beheld, and out of her feathers grew other contrary feathers, and they became little feathers and small." Okay, so this is out of the 12. Okay. These 12 feathers were we already covered that, you know what I mean, with the 12 Caesars, right? Let's
Hmm.
see here. Verse 4, we read that already. Verse 5, it says, "Moreover, I beheld, and lo, the eagle flew with her feathers and rained upon earth and over them that dwelt therein." All right. Scripture that comes to mind is Daniel. What is that? Daniel 4 and is it 17, right? This is Daniel 4 and 17. Okay. It says, "This matters by the decree of the watchers and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men." Okay.
Hmm.
So these other nations that have, Israel in captivity, that doesn't make them, righteous or, on any type of level spiritually. All right. It just lets us know that the Lord can do what he wants to do. And even when you read in Baruch, the 4th chapter, it talks about how the Lord put us in captivity so that way we know that we messed up, not to completely destroy us, all right, but to know there's a recompense, all right, because the reason why all of this is was going on or prophesied to happen, which eventually it did happen, was because of the transgression of Israel. Okay. And so there's a lot that went on. Okay. There's a lot that was going on at the same time. And we're zooming in on the history of Rome. Okay.
Hmm.
Continuing on here. in verse 6. Okay. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, not to forget, referencing this this image here. There were vassal states. Okay. Um, vassal states of Rome. Like this wasn't considered Rome. Like it wasn't considered Rome specifically. These other areas that were ultimately conquered and tributaries to Rome were basically vassal or client states. Okay, and there's probably a better map on here somewhere that that has like the breakdown of the different vassal states. Let's see. Let's see here. Vassal states of Rome. Because that's today, the beast with seven heads and 10 horns. It's the same thing. Rome. Okay, here we go. Ancient kingdoms, client kingdoms in ancient Rome. Here we go. I love images and pictures. Okay. I don't know why this is in Italian. Obviously there's different colors.
Oh,
that actually wasn't bad, but I want to get something in English. Okay. What's this? In this
man,
present map.
you might have to get with Apostle Gabar, man.
Right. Yeah, no, I could try, but I don't want to,
Yeah.
I want to do too much. I was actually looking at this earlier today on a chat. Let me pull up the chat real quick that I had specifically on the vassal states of Rome. All right, so the main areas that you had were the Eastern Mediterranean. Let's see if there's any other good pictures here. I want different colors. I don't want all the same color. Tiberius. I guess the first one was the best one. Because that had them divided into different colors.
Yeah, the one in Italian.
Here, right? So yeah. Say again, Zaquan?
I said the one in Italian was the best
Yeah,
one.
yeah. It's all good. It's all, you know what I mean? It's all good.
Yeah.
So yeah, you had the Eastern Mediterranean, which was the Kingdom of Egypt, Kingdom of Judea, Kingdom of Galatia, which was mentioned in what was it? First Maccabees 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was all the stuff to the east, right? You can see Galatia here. If it lets me click Galatia here. You see obviously Egypt with Memphis and Alexandria here, and then you see Jerusalem as well. And Kingdom of Cappadocia, okay, all that stuff. That was the Eastern Mediterranean. Then you had the North African part, which was Cyrene, Leptis, all these, the northern part, Kingdom of Mauritania, Kingdom of Numidia, and then also Western Europe, right? To the west, Iberia, which is modern day, Spain, right? All the way up, even into Great Britain. Okay. So those were pretty much when you're going back in, what was that, verse 5? Okay. It rained upon the earth. All right. Not the entire globe, but the known world at that time was pretty much, in control and tributary to Rome. Okay, it says verse 6, and I saw that all things under heaven were subject to her, okay, under that part of the heaven, and no man spake against her. No, not one creature upon the earth. Nobody was able to come and subdue the Roman Empire. You know what I mean? At that point, you know what I mean? Like it couldn't fall. It wasn't just like Rome wasn't built in one day. It couldn't fall in one day.
Right.
You know
And
what I mean?
Daniel prophesied this.
Yeah. Yep. So that's why it's so heavily like studied and even going into the Renaissance, the rebirth of that kind of that Roman ideology that happened again in Italy and in Rome, that came from that area. Okay, the rebirth basically of this entire system. Okay, the
Right.
new Roman Empire, which
Right.
is
When the earth was given into the hands of the wicked, this is what they did with it. You know what I'm saying? It's going through how it started with Alexander to here to the revival to you know what I'm saying?
mhm.
And it's tracking what was happening with the Israelites the whole time that it's tracking what's going on with the Edomites. You see? This is what the Bible is talking about. You see? Go ahead.
Come and get a precept real quick. Daniel chapter 2.
Yeah, this way bigger. This way bigger than I gave my life to Jesus Christ.
Man. Well, a video like this is not going to get a lot of views.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? A video like this ain't gonna get a lot of views. You know, um, man, this even has a breakdown on the blue letter.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece. Okay, then
That's what
Rome.
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The blue letter wasn't always like that.
Man,
You know what I'm saying? I remember what the blue letter looked like when I first started using it. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And it's grown, and that's based off the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahweh giving us this as a tool. You know what I'm saying? In our knapsack.
yep.
You got it.
Con. All right, so I want to get this here, Daniel 2 and 40. It says, "And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron." Okay, because when you read this, you got to read. I mean, bro, like Zaquan, we're only on what verse 6. We've
Yeah.
been going for 52
Yep.
minutes, and and
Yep.
and, and I'm abridging it. Like I'm not even going into everything that I want. You know what I mean? Like you gotta some of this stuff. Like we can't hold your head. Like you gotta look into it yourself.
Right.
We are laying out a lot of this stuff. So, but you know, Daniel 2 and 40. All right, the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, stronger than all the other brass and silver and gold that came before it, which representative of the previous empires that ruled before Rome. The fourth kingdom, which is Rome, shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things. Okay. Um, now, basically, we already talked about how the military might uh, of Rome was able to conquer the entire known world. All right, it says, "And as iron breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise." Okay, and so that's what happened. Okay, in verse 6, "And I saw all things under heaven were subject unto her." Okay, which is that her is that talking about the Roman Empire, and that no man
Mhm.
spake against her, no, not one creature upon the earth. Okay, um, that was the Debo of, you know, basically, 300, 400 BC all the way up into, 100 BC plus.
Yep.
Okay, it says, I'm sorry, 180 plus. Verse 7, and I beheld, and lo, the eagle rose upon her talons and spake to her feathers, saying, "Watch not all at once, sleep every one in his own place, and watch by course." Yeah, because all the Caesars didn't rule at the same time. Okay, um, they were ruled one after the other, right?
Mhm.
Just like when Ezra was talking about earlier to the angel Uriel, he was asking him, why weren't we all born at once so that the judgment could come sooner? What the angel of the Lord say? Can a pregnant woman have all her children at once, or do they need to be born one at a time? Right? So everything had to take its natural course according to the timeline that the Lord set up. All right. And it says in verse 9, "But let the heads be preserved for the last." Now that again, that's going into the three men of the first triumvirate, which were who? Uh Julius Caesar, Marcus Crassus, and
Pompey.
Pompey Magnus. Okay, the first triumvirate, they were in the beginning, okay, and they also came back, okay, in the end. Okay, those three heads came back as Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. Okay, which Vespasian was Julius Caesar coming back. Okay, in the reincarnation, and he had two sons. His two sons were Titus and Domitian. Okay, which was known as the Flavian dynasty. All right, so that's the kind of overview. Okay, and now it's going to go more into detail. Let me see how much we're at on time. We'll go for a little bit more. It says what was it, verse 10? Okay. And I beheld, and lo, the voice went not out of her heads, but from the midst of her body. Okay. All the different Caesars ruled at different times. Because the 12, feathers obviously were all throughout the body. Okay. It says, and I numbered her contrary feathers. Again, the contrary feathers are of the 12. Okay. And behold, there were 8 of them. Now, this is, you could say, the quote unquote hardest part of the breakdown. All right. Because you have to understand that the 3 heads also have their own representative feathers. Okay. And the 3 heads also came back, like, more than once, if that makes sense. So it wasn't just 3 heads of Julius Caesar, Marcus Crassus, and Pompey Magnus. It was those 3 that I said, the first triumvirate, and then also the Flavian dynasty, okay, which were the last 3 Caesars that were mentioned here, Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. Okay, so the other 8 Caesars out of those 12, okay, are in this verse the contrary. Okay, the ones with lesser powers, ultimately than the ones that came before and after them, I should say, the ones that were in the middle. Okay, because they were not part of the first triumvirate, and they were not part of the Flavian dynasty.
I got a quick precept for you.
Con.
This is Ecclesiastes 6:10. It says, that which had been is named already, and it is known that it is man. Neither may he contend with him that is mightier than he. And I'm gonna go ahead and get one more verse up, because it's talking about reincarnation. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Lucky, what
It
verse you
says
in so I can pull it up?
Ecclesiastes 6:9.
Okay, con. You got it.
No. Hold on. No. 6 and 9. Well, 6 and 10 is talking. It's talking about reincarnation right there. But I wanted to get Ecclesiastes 1.
Okay.
That which has been. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. Now I'm gonna read 6. I'm gonna read Ecclesiastes 6 and 10 again. It says, that which has been is named already, and it's known that it is man. Now, when you go to Ecclesiastes 1 and 9, it's letting you know. All right.
I got it right here.
Okay. Read that, Baba Shah.
Yeah. All right. Ecclesiastes 1 and 9. It says, the thing that hath been, it is that which shall be. And that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So what we were saying, for those who new to this thing, if you getting you have an understanding of reincarnation, that's why the brother was saying that this is the first triumvirate came back. You see, because it's over a stretch of time. You see. Go ahead. Well, that was it. That was the point I wanted to make on it. You can go back.
Con. All right. So we left off here at verse 11. It says, and I numbered her contrary feathers, and behold, there were 8 of them. Again, those contrary feathers were the Caesars outside of the first triumvirate, which really Crassus and Pompey never became Caesars. Okay, but they were part of that first triumvirate, obviously, which were the 3 heads. Okay, They were part of that. And also, um, the second incarnation of the three heads, if you will, the Flavian dynasty, those did become Caesars. Vespasian, okay, he was the father of Titus and Domitian,
Mm-hmm.
okay, which both of those men, Titus and Domitian, did become Caesars after Vespasian, okay. So those are the four, right? Julius, Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. And really, when you think about it, if you really, it ain't even about thinking, really just study Julius Caesar, Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. Those were the men that were the most warrior-minded, raw, like, you know what I mean? Cut
Mm-hmm.
straight to the chase Caesars. You know what I mean? The ones that raised the most hell as far as military, you know what I mean? And conquering.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of the other Caesars that followed after that, pretty much in that regard, were contrary in that regard. Okay. Including Augustus, even though he reigned for over 40 years, including Tiberius, even though he reigned for over 2 decades. Of course, Caligula, that's 3 out of the 8.
Yeah,
Claudius,
Nero.
Nero, Galba, Otho, and Vitellius.
Wasn't
Okay.
ain't Nero Claudius' son? If I'm not
Um,
mistaken, I think I think Nero was Claudius' son, but yeah, I think
yeah.
that's what
I
it
mean,
was because
I
they
gotta
was
look it up and see.
yeah because both of them was mentioned in Acts.
Right, right. Well, yeah. When we get down to that, when it mentions them, I plan on going into them more in detail. You
Yeah, okay,
know what I'm saying,
yeah. I'm just
but
thinking out loud.
yeah, yeah. Con. Yeah, well, Nero, we're gonna get to him. Trust me, we're gonna get to that deep.
Yeah, oh, we gonna get to Nero's ass.
You know what I'm saying? Like we
Good.
say, and through the spirit, Nero is Trump
Yeah.
coming back in the reincarnation. Okay, and he acts just like Trump. You know, he acts just like that devil.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I even
Now,
lumped Antiochus into Google similarities between Antiochus, Nero, and Trump, and
Con,
I was like, okay, that was it was interesting. You got
yeah,
it.
absolutely, right. And we'll get a couple more, and then we'll close out.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to break this up into multiple sections. But guess what? If this video is, too long for you, or you don't got a time, break it up, watch it in sections, okay?
Yeah.
Or I mean, if it's not that valuable to you, just go watch Sports Center. You know,
Yeah.
go watch, you know what I mean? Go watch YouTube on something else. Because this is really only for the brothers that's really serious about, Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. Okay. That's why this was only given to Ezra directly.
Hmm.
And, obviously was written down in the book, but who's the ones going into this? Okay. The men of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. Okay. So it says, verse 12, and I looked and beheld on the right side, there arose one feather, okay, and reigned over all the earth. Okay, so this is the first of the 12, which was Julius Caesar. Okay, he was that feather that arose and reigned over all the earth. Now he pretty much ruled for 4 years. He was effectively, he effectively had emperor, dictator, rulership powers for 4 years until he was assassinated. Okay, and then it goes on to the next one. Let me see here. I want to find. Well, we'll stop after Augustus. So the
Now
next
keep in
one.
mind. Now keep in mind. This is Edomites showing their colors. You
Mhm.
see, it's identifying the Edomites as we go through this. You see, going into Julius and how he was, like you said, how he was assassinated. Et tu, Brute, he got stabbed up by his brothers. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? At least they thought he was brothers. But then when you watch these movies and you see these shows and they go into their history, you see the mindset of the Edomites. You see, and you see how their behavior was prophesied through the scriptures. The scriptures talk about that wicked man being revealed. That's what I'm saying. When you go through the history, it goes all. It says you can track him all the way back to Esau. Then you can track it all the way back to before the flood as Cain. You see those same traits and all the prophecies. It adds up. You know,
Con.
it's beautiful for the Lord to let us understand these things, man. Because I remember when we was at GMS homework. You know what I'm saying? And we was taking tests and all that, you know what I'm saying, every week and having to pass. And the school of the prophets. You see, this is how we understand the prophecies through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai and the way that he put the spirit on the apostles, bishops, and elders to teach us that true doctrine. This doctrine comes from the heavens as part of his history. Is Hey, this is what was going on with Israel. This is why we understand the Gentiles, is because we understand this. What Apostle Elder Gabar always say, you got to understand the history to understand the mystery. You see?
That's right.
You got it.
Con. Yeah, I wanted to while we're on that with Julius Caesar real quick. And what was that in verse 12? Okay. I wanted to get now that we got this map out of the way, I wanted to get Pax Romana, which is another term, okay, that you should know concerning concerning this time period. Okay, this really I really should have started it off with this in the lesson. Pax Romana birthed the Roman Empire. Okay, in a sense. So Pax Romana, Latin for Roman peace, okay, is roughly a 200-year long period of ancient Rome that is defined as the golden age of increased and sustained Roman imperialism. Why is it known as the golden age? Because basically, this was the time that Esau was in that thing ruling, kicking ass and taking names. Okay, and then that they were at the height of their power and influence and all that stuff. Okay, and it basically ended with Marcus Aurelius's son. Okay, which Marcus Aurelius was a Jake, okay, an Israelite, and then his son was an Israelite, and they pretty much put that Pax Romana shit to rest. You know what I mean? Eventually, once Jake started getting up in there, So anyway, it says prosperous stability, hegemonic power, regional expansion, and relative peace and order. Although it still featured a number of internal revolts and external wars, including the Roman-Persian Wars. Okay, traditionally, the onset is understood to be the ascent of Augustus, which Augustus, they'll say he was the first official Caesar of Rome, quote unquote, the founder. Which, by the way, it says here is also known as Octavian, the founder of the Roman Empire. Okay, which again, if you don't know shit about the history, you're like, what? How is he the founder of the Roman Empire? Because again, the Roman Republic, okay, ended with Julius Caesar basically becoming the first Caesar, okay, which we'll get into Augustus, but we're still on Pax Romana. Pax Romana was established during, what was it, during the time of Augustus Caesar, or was it the time of Julius Caesar? Let me see when it started. Okay, from 27 BC to 180 BC, it says stands as one of the longest enduring periods of peace in history. So since Caesar died in 44 BC, it would have been established by what your boy Augustus. Okay, so yeah, so it was established by Augustus Caesar. Okay, so pretty much think about that. Okay, as we read in, and I guess we can kind of put a stop on it right there. Okay, at verse 12. because basically, again, after Julius Caesar died, he was like you went into, Zaquan. Matter of fact, let's end it off on that. Julius Caesar's death, okay, which obviously preceded Augustus Caesar becoming Caesar. Julius Caesar, okay. Now his death, I want to go into it. There's a lot
Yeah.
to there's a lot to read about it. You know, they got a lot of information on this dude that was alive, 2100, 2000 years ago. Where's his death at? I guess legacy, early life and career. It's a long ass thing here.
Yeah.
Uh
And that's the thing. You see, going through this history shows you got what the Hotep dudes and Pan Africans and all those. You got people out there talking about the Israel never existed and all this crazy stuff. Like, no, this if these people if these people were here, the Israelites in captivity up on them. That's what I'm saying. You don't understand Jacob and Esau. You know, we
mhm.
understand. We understand the history. That's why we can understand the mystery. You know, study to show thyself approved, rightly divide the word of truth. All this is a part of that, you know?
Mm. Sheesh. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff
Yeah.
here. Okay, here we go. All right, so it says prior to Caesar's assumption to the title of dictator perpetual dictator, in February 44 BC, he had been appointed dictator some 4 times since his first dictatorship in 49 BC, because it was some new shit he was pulling off. You know what I mean? Basically, like nobody ever did this before. It says after occupying Rome, he engineered his first appointment largely to hold elections, and after 11 days, he resigned. You know who he kind of reminds me of? He kind of reminds me of like the George Washington of Rome, because even when you go into
Mm-hmm.
George Washington, he was he fought in the Revolutionary War and all that stuff, and he ended up
Yeah.
becoming the first president. You know,
Yep.
that was
I can see that.
something I was thinking about when I was studying this. But it says, let me see, I want to go down to where he died.
He died.
Right. He did a lot of shit, man, like leading up to it. Okay, here we go. Here we go. All right.
And then he died.
Right. Conspiracy and death, right? So attempts attempts in January 44 BC to call Caesar uh Rex a title um a title associated with arbitrary oppression against citizens were shut down by 2 tribunes before a supportive crowd. Let's see here. Caesar, claiming that the 2 tribunes infringed on his honor by doing so, had deposed from office and ejected from the Senate. So he was trying to get out of the spotlight because he had did everything he needed to do. He had made his money. He had, conquered everything. You know what I'm saying? So now at this point, he's trying not to get overthrown because he has so much power. He was literally trying to get out the way. You know what I'm saying? Because niggas would conspire against you and kill you. It would, you know what I mean? That's how it was back
Mm-hmm.
then, which ended up eventually happening. But it said the incident both undermined Caesar's original arguments for pursuing the Civil War, which was protecting the tribunes, and angered a public which still revered the tribunes as protectors of popular freedom. Okay. Shortly before February 15, 44, he assumed the dictatorship for life because people wanted him to rule. They was mad, like, nah, bro, you can't abandon your post, right? Putting an end to any hopes that his powers would be merely temporary, transforming his dictatorship, even with a decadal appointment, into one for life, clearly showed to all contemporaries, okay, that Caesar had no intention to restore a free republic because, again, he pretty much dismantled the Roman Republic, okay, and that no free republic could be restored as long as he was in power, okay. And let me see here. All right, I want to get to where. Okay, here we go. The plan to assassinate Caesar had started in the summer of 45 BC. An intent an attempt to recruit Antony was made around that time, though he declined and gave Caesar no warning. So they was going behind. They was going to Caesar so close, friends and trying to, trying to get him to kill him. You know what I'm saying? He didn't, he didn't kill him, but he basically didn't tell Caesar that they was conspiring against him either. You know what I mean? It's some snake shit. Like if you
Man.
watch that TV show, going into the Borgia family, I think it's called the Borgias or something like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's it.
yeah, you know what I mean. I don't know if it's probably ain't on Netflix no more, but if you could find it, going into all the treachery that was going on, right? Um, it says it is clear at that time. Let me see. Let me go down. Okay. Okay, here we go. Brutus. Okay, Brutus, who claimed descent from Lucius Junius Brutus, who had driven out kings and the Gaius, blah blah blah, who had freed Rome from incipient tyranny, was the main leader of the conspiracy. Like you said, et tu Brute, like whole like things were written about this time. I remember studying this shit in school. We had to read
Mhm.
about Julius Caesar and how he ended up dying and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
Let me see here. Okay. It says popular indignation at Caesar was lightly rooted in his debt policies. He was too friendly to lenders, the use of lethal force to suppress protests for debt relief, his reduction to the grain dole, his abolition, all this stuff. So we did a lot of shit certain people didn't like. Okay. It says a popular turn against Caesar is also observed with reports that the disposed tribunes were written. Um, let's get that word tribunes real quick. How do I? There we go. Tribunes were powerful elected officials in ancient Roman Republic, specifically designated to protect the rights of the plebeians, which were the commoners, against patrician oppression. Remember, we're going into that, the plebeians and the patricians. Okay, basically being the two different parties uh, of the ancient Roman Empire. Okay. Anyway, um, damn, there's so much stuff, and so it goes into so much detail.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's pretty much okay, here we go. Hold on. Okay, here we go. While some new hold on, did I skip it? Okay. It says while some news of the conspiracy did leak, Caesar refused to take precautions and rejected escort by a bodyguard. So he was like, man, shit, they want to kill me. You know what I'm saying? They'll kill me. Yeah, he was a warrior.
Yeah.
He went out like a G. Talking about, even though he was an Edomite, I ain't saying he was righteous, you know. But it says the date decided upon the conspirators was March 15th, the Ides of March, 3 days before Caesar intended to leave for his Parthian campaign. News of his imminent departure forced the conspirators to move up their plans. The Senate meeting on the 15th would be the last before his departure. They had decided that a Senate meeting was the best place to frame a killing as political, rejecting the alternative at games, elections, or on the road. Um, that the only conspirators would be armed at the Senate meeting. Excuse me, that only the conspirators would be armed at the Senate meeting per Dio also would have been an advantage. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much it. They ended up killing him. I think it was oh, here we go. Various stories support that Caesar was on the cusp of not attending or otherwise not being warned about the plot, or otherwise being warned about the plot, excuse me. Nevertheless, he attended the Senate meeting that day, held the Curia held in Curia of Pompeii, okay, approached on his golden chair at the foot of the statue of Pompey, which again was one of the heads. All right. Uh, the conspirators attacked him with daggers. Whether he fell in silence, per Suetonius, or after reply to Brutus's appearance, Kai Su Tekon, you too, child, or et tu Brutus, really you too, Brutus. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, damn, Brutus, you too, bro.
Like, damn, cuz.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Damn, cuz. Nigga, I never thought it would be you.
Yeah. Yep.
You were wrong.
Right. Yeah, you know what I mean? Drama.
But that's Edom for you.
Con. That's it. It says he was stabbed at least 23 times and died at once. Okay. So that gives you a
Man.
little taste. that gives you a little taste of the treachery that was going on around this time, even amongst their highest officials or their highest representatives, I'll say. Okay. And so, you know, we can stop it there. You know, that first feather again, Julius Caesar, you know, that's probably gonna be like a 3-part deal. You know what I'm saying? But hey man, you know, Abaratazah, Lord willing, you know, you brothers and sincere sisters were taking notes and everything like that and was edified. All right, we'll continue, Lord willing, you know, with the series with part 2. All right. So with that, we want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles, brothers, and millstone, and peace and salutations to the elect. Shalom.
Shalom.